Hulk Hogan had some of the best matches with Sting of his career. And if you go back even further, he had matches with Big Van Vader over the U.S. Championship when Sting was the bleach blonde Sting, and he was really a representative of America, if anything, and a believer in just being yourself and just, doing what you had to do to be an outstanding character and performer in professional wrestling. No matter if you're talking about his matches with Vader, no matter if you're talking about his matches with Mick Foley, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan. I mean, he had so many unbelievable matches and moments which go all the way back through the years, a span of over 25 years. And that's why I'm extremely frustrated that Sting has not had that career-defining moment, I guess, in WWE, because he's had so many career-defining moments outside of WWE. Why can't he have at least one career-defining moment, no matter if it's in a match with the likes of The Rock, The Undertaker, someone like Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar? He just needs to get to a point. And the thing is, so many people think that Sting wouldn't be able to hold his own in a match with Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman himself said that Brock Lesnar will fought Sting. What's really interesting about Paul Heyman's analogy of Sting versus Brock Lesnar is that it would be a retirement match where Brock Lesnar will retire Sting. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because you can put The Undertaker in the ring against anyone from Brock Lesnar to Hulk Hogan, and The Undertaker will perform just as good as what he would have performed 15 years ago early on in his career. And the same thing can be said about Sting. You can put Sting in the ring at 58 years of age against someone like Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns, and he would bring the best not only out of himself, but of his opponents as well. And Sting would have a tremendous opportunity to create with so many wrestlers that he's never had the chance to create with before, and demonstrate that in-ring psychology the way of a Jake the Snake Roberts or Roddy Piper or a Bret Hart or a Shawn Michaels that we've seen time and time reiterated over the years. I mean, Sting having the chance to wrestle against Roman Reigns and Bo Dallas and Brock Lesnar would be a phenomenal opportunity, because we've never seen it before as wrestling fans. We've seen him wrestle against the fair share of legends, from Hogan to Ric Flair, from whatever promotion you remember having Sting wrestled for. The matches with Mick Foley and TNA Wrestling, by the way, were awesome. So I think that having Sting create against all these wrestlers he's never had the chance to create with before at 58 years of age also offers a tremendous amount of experience to the new talent initiative, which is an opportunity you can't pass up. So Sting, really, to me, wrestling in WWE for the long run is something that's really going to be amazing if we do in fact get a point to see that. Obviously, you're not going to get 10 or 11 years of a Sting the way you would of a Roman Reigns or a Dean Ambrose character, but the thing is, Sting really needs to have this chance to really shine in WWE. And if you're Vince McMahon, you're obviously really frustrated with how Sting treated you for all these years, saying what he did about you on YouTube for several shoot videos, which I've watched so many times over the years. But the thing is, you really got to let bygones be bygones, let the past stay in the past, put it behind you, and really have this opportunity allow itself to really broaden your horizons with WWE, because I think Sting can do wonders for WWE, just as he did for World Championship Wrestling, total nonstop action, all the territories, even on the independent level. I mean, Sting came all the way from the independent level to the major stage, performing on WrestleMania. So obviously WWE knows the legend that Sting is with wrestling. They've wanted to sign Sting for years. They took advantage of the opportunity by offering him a Legends contract to promote merchandise and DVDs and the network, and they obviously took advantage of it, convincing him to wrestle. And I think because they convinced him to wrestle and it took so long, over 14 years, I think he deserves to be treated a lot better than what he's been treated, and he deserves to get a lot better than what he's gotten thus far in WWE. I mean, he showed great professionalism in that match with Seth Rollins, wanting to finish it, being curb stomped and pinned by Seth Rollins, obviously because of the injury. If not for the injury, so many people think Sting would have came out of that match victorious and winning a championship, the same way John Cena did earlier in the evening last September at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. And I really thought Sting was going to have that career-defining moment. I stand to the belief that he probably would have had that career-defining moment if not for the injury. But if you're Sting, you've got to be really frustrated. And I don't blame you for being as frustrated as what you were, and I don't blame you for being a Sting fan who's extremely pissed off over how Sting's been treated, because you remember Sting having the career-defining moments in World Championship Wrestling, his matches with Goldberg, his matches with Scott Hall. I just brought up the Uncensored match from a number of years ago, which I saw. That was a great match at an Uncensored pay-per-view from many years ago. The matches with Mick Foley, the matches with Ric Flair, which was the last match of Nitro's history for over 6 years. Sting's had a lot of career-defining moments. You remember those as Sting fans. You were probably a Sting fan who wore the Sting face paint or the Sting mask that was sold as merchandise, which WWE are still selling on WWEshop.com, carrying up the tradition of Sting's character. But the thing is, I don't blame you for being frustrated, and I'm hoping for all of you that Sting will have that career-defining moment sometime throughout 2016, if not later on in his career. What was really interesting about Sting in 2013, during a UK tour of TNA Wrestling, he said he didn't know what 2014 had in store for him, so he was kind of kayfabing that it was his last year with TNA Wrestling. He was ending his contract with TNA and he was going to WWE. He said he didn't know what 2014 had in store. And if he would have known what 2014 had in store for him, obviously we didn't know at that point, or he didn't know what 2014 had in store for him. But if he would have known WWE was going to treat him the way that they did, do you think Sting would have really signed with WWE? That's the question. And I think that he probably wouldn't have. He seriously probably would have reevaluated doing what he did and all he did to sign with WWE and get to this point in his career. Obviously, if you're Sting, you've signed this Legends contract either wanting a career-defining moment or know that something's going to be happening for you down the road for WWE. Obviously, they're going to put him in the Hall of Fame because of everything that he did, and obviously after he has this career-defining moment with WWE, but obviously you've signed on for something bigger, whether it be a Hall of Fame induction, winning a championship, defeating a big name like The Undertaker or Brock Lesnar. Something really needs to happen for Sting, and obviously what's happening here for him right now is they're just hyping it up and building it up and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, even more so in the wake of this injury. But I am a believer that one day we will see Sting return to WWE and see this career-defining moment, regardless of how it happens or when it happens or how long it takes to happen. And I think really that's what's frustrating a lot of wrestling fans is how long this is taking to happen for Sting. It didn't happen instantly, and because it didn't happen instantly, because you're a diehard fan of Sting, much like myself have been for years. I just talked about the 1990 World Title win over Ric Flair at the Great American Bash all those years ago, or 23, 24 years ago, something along those lines. The thing is, you're frustrated because it didn't happen instantly for Sting. It didn't happen right away. It didn't happen at the snap of your fingers. If it would have happened at the mere snap of your fingers, you probably would have been happy and said, Sting's return was fucking awesome. There's no way they can top it. But the thing is, they can top everything that happened with Sting with just one career-defining moment. You're a legend like Sting. You've done everything there is for you to have done. And the thing is, WWE and their creative team knows that Sting has done everything there is for Sting's character to have done, no matter if you're talking about the bleach blonde Sting or the Crow Sting, which is obviously, his most popular era of his character, especially when he returned to go up against the NWO and really set things in motion for a war to happen between World Championship Wrestling and the New World Order. If not for Sting, the New World Order probably wouldn't have been as infamous and as famous as it is today. So I think that, WWE just realizes everything's happened for Sting throughout his career. He doesn't need to have a career-defining moment right away in WWE. And as has been said so many times over the years, there's more pride in losing and going out with your head held high than there was just winning a match, coming in and dominating the way of Dwayne Johnson at WrestleMania 3 years ago in 2012. So I think that they know that, and they're just putting off that career-defining moment for Sting rather than just giving it to him and saying, here's our championship. You've never worked with us before. Here's our championship. Run with the championship and beat everybody in your path. They're just putting it off and putting it off. It's not the way of Dwayne Johnson, who has to come in and dominate after having done everything earlier on in his career. He just comes in because he's The Rock and he wants to win, and they give it to him because he hasn't wrestled in years. So they're just hyping it up and hyping it up and hyping it up. And believe me when I tell you, when it finally happens for Sting, it's going to be something that wrestling fans are going to remember and, dare I say, never forget. I am a diehard Sting fan. You can get that from all the videos I've posted on my YouTube channel in pertention to Sting's career with WWE and just how I feel about his treatment with WWE. Obviously, I felt that it's very unfair. In the words of Gorilla Monsoon, everything that's happened for Sting is obviously a miscarriage of justice, and I think that something really does need to happen for Sting, and that's really why I've been forcing this issue throughout most of 2015, and we'll continue to do it up until we see Sting's return sometime in 2016, which is something that really needs to happen. And I thought by now, if anyone was going to make a return other than John Cena, who was one of the only ones who was not injured on the injury list from 2015, the likes of Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, taking a look at many of them, Sin Cara is the latest one to be on the injury list. I would have thought Sting would have returned before any of them would have. And the thing was, Sting's return in WWE is something that really needs to happen for WrestleMania 32, because you really need to have a headliner get in there for WrestleMania 32. And I'm hoping that sometime in 2016, Sting will return, if not before WrestleMania 32, which would be awesome to see him headline that event, or sometime shortly after it, because you really do need Sting to get in there. And I was hoping that he was going to return sometime before any of these legends would have, like you would have thought that he would have, especially with how his neck injury was deemed not to have been so serious like it was initially thought that it was. I can't blame Sting fans for feeling as pissed off as what they were. The same thing, kind of applies to CM Punk, for instance. The Sting and CM Punk situations are similar in a lot of scary ways because there were so many pissed off CM Punk fans when realization set in and The Rock came in after 434 days and defeated CM Punk the way he did and won the championship and took it to Hollywood. Everybody was like, oh my Jesus. If there was an oh my Jesus moment from 2013, it was obviously that after 434 days and so many loyal CM Punk fans we had out there. And the same thing years later can be applied to Sting and his situation. There are so many loyal Sting fans out there, and you're all pissed off over the fact he hasn't had a career-defining moment. He hasn't won a major pay-per-view. He's lost to Triple H and Seth Rollins. And of all the fucking names you could have lost to Sting lose to, it was Triple H. And a lot of people are still trying to figure out why it even happened the way that it did. But it all has to do with psychology. And as long as they can find ways of pissing us off, which obviously was to have Seth Rollins, a nobody, beat a legend like Sting, you're like, what the fuck? You order the pay-per-view Night of Champions thinking Sting is going to ride off into the sunset as WWE Champion, and this neck injury prolongs it. And after the neck injury, it was inevitable that Seth Rollins had to win. They had to stop the match. Sting needed surgery, which was successful, by the way. The injury wasn't as serious as what we thought it was, so return could happen sooner for Sting. You ordered the pay-per-view thinking, oh my Jesus, here's Sting going to win the championship, and then you're like, oh my Jesus, but in a different way than what you initially thought you were going to be saying oh my Jesus about, because Sting lost when you thought he was going to win. But again, it has to do with psychology. Any way they can piss you off, they're going to piss you off, no matter if it's having Sting lose to Seth Rollins. If it wasn't going to be Seth Rollins, it was going to be somebody else. It probably would have been Roman Reigns, if they would have been left with no choice. And that would have really pissed me off. It would have been Roman Reigns over a Dean Ambrose or a Seth Rollins beating Sting. I would have been really frustrated, extremely frustrated about all of it. But I can't say that I blame Sting fans for feeling the way that they had, because they have showed extreme loyalty for Sting, and you guys have nothing to be ashamed of. And I'll say that again. You guys have nothing to be ashamed of for how you felt about Sting, his treatment, and just how you've been so loyal to Sting for so many years. Sting knows that himself. Sting's promoters have known that for years. And WWE knows how extremely loyal you are to people like Sting. And you guys have nothing to be ashamed of. Going out with your heads held high and losses of Sting over the last year in 2015, hoping for a better year in 2016. You guys are some of the greatest fans in the world and some of the smartest people in the world when it comes to knowing what you guys want out of professional wrestling. If wrestling listened to